Hey everyone, Jessica Kubasi here. In today's video, I want to go over something very important. Now, it's not a lot of things that photographers really need to be concerned about, but it is something that non-photographers need to be concerned about, and that is how to avoid being scammed by a photographer. I got this question from a concerned mother, and she sent me the following. I have a question, Jessica. What do I do when my daughter had senior pictures done and was charged X amount of dollars? She is a minor and we were given no pictures at all and no contract. Help a confused mom. I felt horrible after reading this. I was like, this is everyone's worst nightmare. Imagine this person is doing your wedding and they don't give you wedding pictures, and this has happened. So I kind of, from a photographer's perspective, I wanted to tell anyone who's really not familiar with photography what they should be looking out for and what are some red flags and tells of what to be concerned about when booking a photographer, and also what kind of things should you be looking for and what kind of things you should know. I'm right now talking about if you're trying to book a wedding photographer, engagement, senior pictures, stuff like that. I'm not talking about the bigger like editorial photo shoots. It has nothing to do with this. So this is more client based. So if you're a regular person just looking for a photographer to take pictures for you. Now first you have to ask yourself, what kind of photography are you looking for? Now every photographer has a different specialty, a different style, and just overall different way of handling their business. So there's a lot of research you have to do beforehand. You can't just go on Facebook, email someone and that's it. There's just so much more that has to be done. I mean, this is if you actually care about what's going to happen to your pictures. If you are concerned about the experience you are going to get with your photography, then I would definitely research beforehand. Again, I would not just jump into it and book the first person that you see on Instagram. This is not the way that I would recommend doing it. The first thing you should do is ask your friends, because your friends are people that you trust, and your friends are people that will tell you, hey, just don't do this person sucks, stuff like that. Little be straight up honest with you. And if they're not honest with you, maybe you need new friends. So let's say your friend gives you a name of a photographer that they can recommend, that they heard about, but you have no idea who this person is. You've never heard of them in your life before. Now this is the biggest thing for me. If I were looking for a photographer, I would see their social media first and foremost. To begin with, does that person even have a Facebook? Do they have an Instagram? Do they have a website? You have to be looking for these things. Now, I'm not saying that the photographers who don't have these things are horrible photographers and you shouldn't book them, but what I am saying is that it's kind of would be concerning to me, because if someone's really passionate and serious about their business, they would stay up to date with the times, and it's 2015. I mean, if you don't have an Instagram, just make one. So photographers who are up to date will be up to date with social media. Let's be honest here. Let's take away all the personal that we might feel about someone. Oh, they seem trustworthy. Oh, they're a nice guy. Who even cares? If they are serious about what they do, they know that this is the best way to market yourself, either social media and word of mouth. So one or the other. I mean, social media is the biggest thing for me. That's one of the key things that I look for when I'm booking, or I'm looking for someone for a friend of mine, stuff like that. But thought I turned that off. Just look for a clean and updated website. That's all I'm asking for. I mean, I don't want to go on your website and it was made with angel fire and you have a blue background and then you have one of Britney Spears' Oops, I Did It Again songs playing in the background. And there's no way to pause the song and you have to listen to the whole thing before you can enter. Just don't do that. Now, after you find out if they have social media, things that you need to look out for. Do they actually update their social media? And if so, when was the last time they updated? If the last time they updated was back in 2007, maybe you should ask yourself if this is the right person you should be going to, because I mean, you would think that they want to market themselves and they want to have the most up-to-date pictures to show clients, so that would be a concern of mine. Look for their examples of work, albums they might have, and also look for user feedback, look for user reviews on that specific photographer. Sometimes on the Facebook page, people will have comments like, oh my god, thank you for shooting my wedding, or whatever on their wall. So just read through those, read through the comments. Another major point that resonates with me is if the photographer is talking smack on their Facebook or saying something bad about an experience they had with another client. This is extremely telling, and I would really steer clear of any photographers who do this, because that could be you next. So you don't want a photographer who is going to cause drama, who looks like they will be problematic. This is a huge red flag. So I mean, you can take the risk, but do you really want a photographer putting everyone on blast on their Facebook and social media to be working on your wedding. Also, what kind of things are they posting on their Facebook? Are they posting pictures of their dog, their kids, or is it strictly business? This can kind of show you who's completely serious and who's kind of like, hey, well, I do this on the side. Another very important point which I cannot emphasize enough, and if I had a speakerphone to the world, I would use the opportunity to, the world peace thing obviously, but then I would go and tell everyone, one picture does not represent a whole set of photos. One photo may not represent the quality of an entire set of photos. Meaning one really, really nice wedding picture that a photographer posts on their Instagram may not be indicative of their entire set of photos, and maybe those other photos aren't as good as that one picture. So before you book a photographer, look through their complete set of work, and if they don't have any, ask the photographer for an example, or what I would do is go and ask someone who's worked with them and ask to see their pictures. Most of the time, the clients that have worked with a photographer that are tagged in the pictures will have pictures on their personal page, so that I would just go creep and be a stalker for just a couple of minutes though. Because honestly, the problem is people see one photo on Instagram and then they book right away. They're like, oh man, this person's amazing. They see one picture. This picture can be very misleading. I think that you should see the entire work of the entire set of photos, both indoor and outdoor. Some photographers are only trained to do indoor stuff. Sometimes they've never shot outside before. You have to see both mediums of work. I don't know why people don't do this next step. Ask for recommendations. This is another big point. All the things in the video are big points because just no one does them. I don't know. Ask your friends who have worked with this person if they could show you examples of the pictures that they received from the photographer. This is also a great way, and a lot of people do this. I think that's the best way to go, actually, to see what your friends get. And if you actually don't know the people that the photographer is working with, then go on their Facebook and see people tagged, and I would just send them a friendly message. I don't think people would mind, honestly. I think people would be more than happy to recommend a photographer if they really like that person. And if they didn't like the photography, I'm sure they would be more than happy to tell you how much they didn't like the experience. Because people, when they have a bad experience, everybody's gonna know. And a lot of people they're just looking at the price, and they're fixated on the amount that they're going to pay rather than the experience that they will get from the photography services. If a photographer has a really cheap price, they're going to be more attracted to that. What I would say is don't let the price fool you, because the price may be like a little fishing rod into something even just a bigger headache than you ever imagined. Why not just put that extra money, book someone who is more experienced, has the qualifications and the recommendations, and that you know, that you've heard of, you've seen their work, and their work is respected. So don't always be mesmerized by the price. Price does not tell all, and the price should not be the reason why you book a photographer. Just keep in mind the experience that you want to receive from what you're paying. And also, I do senior pictures and wedding pictures and engagements and stuff like that, so send me an email sometime. You don't understand how many people have come up to me and said, oh my god, this photographer has done my engagement pictures and I hated them, I didn't like them at all. That's why I would say make sure you see all their work. Become obsessive. If you're gonna be obsessive at any time in your life, this is the one appropriate time to be obsessed, okay? Before I move on to the next chapter in this little video, I have to emphasize, don't book a photographer based on one picture that you see. Just ask people. Now let's say you've contacted the photographer because you got a recommendation, you looked at their pictures, everything, you love everything. Great. Okay, so now you have to be looking at, how does the photographer want to be contacted? Can you literally go on Facebook chat and message them? Or are they a little bit more professional and do they want you to only email them? My recommendation for this is always email the photographer. Email is the best way to do things, in my opinion. Reason being is if anything happens, there's a misunderstanding, there will be a record of what has been said. So there's no possibility of a he said, she said kind of situation. This would eliminate any type of misunderstanding, any possible fights. I mean, if I'm in a situation where I'm with a client and I tell them, oh, well, you only got 200 pictures, and they said, no, you said 250, I can easily just go back to my email and go down to our conversation and just show them that, hey, this is what it said between us, and it'll clear it right up. Rather than if you're calling the photographer over the phone and they're like, hey, just come to my office tomorrow. and there's no record of anyone saying anything, and there's just no proof or no solid foundation for any of the photography business that you guys are about to do. So also, did this person have a professional email? Is it their first and last name? Is it a part of their photography business? Or is it something like angeleyes87@aol.com? I don't know, they usually have like some really old like dinosaur email, and you're like, but why don't you just get a Gmail? Even people who have Hotmail, I'm just like, but how do you even survive? How do you even open your Hotmail? Does it even still open? If the photographer has a hotmail.com account, I would just let them know that it's not hot anymore. Gmail's where it's at. I'm just saying, guys. Now, when you are emailing back and forth, does this person actually put effort into spelling things right, or are they literally all over the place, like first grade grammar and spelling, and they're using random punctuations and weird smiley faces? And these are a reflection of oneself. I mean, you at least want someone who's gonna try to be professional, you know what I mean? Like, try to spell things right. So let's say you email the photographer and you're gonna meet up with them to set everything up. First things first, do they require a deposit? Most photographers who are actually professional will require a deposit, and the reason being is that they value their time and they want to make sure you're serious, and a deposit at least ensures that you are serious about this day and that it cannot be canceled and you just have to do it. I would never pay the full amount to any photographer. I would probably pay half, or whatever else they recommend. Like, they probably do like a smaller amount. And if they don't require a deposit, I just think that's kind of sketchy, and I don't know, I would just be on my guard over there, because then they'll say like, oh well, you never put money down, or this happened and sorry, well, it wasn't serious, and all that stuff. I mean, you don't want to be in that position. So the deposit is just a protocol for most photographers anyways. So that's definitely something that, red flag right there, if they don't require a deposit even, or if they require the full amount before they even do anything. I would not, again, do not pay the full amount, and you can say, hey, I'll pay half, or I'll pay a portion of it, a small portion of it, and then you can pay afterwards. But depending on the photographer's guidelines and how they run their business, this is going to vary with every single photographer. Again, I'm not saying you should sit and fight with a photographer like, oh, I watched this video and they said I shouldn't pay the full amount. I just think that it's irresponsible for someone to take the full amount before they complete the service. Again, this is just how I do it. I would require just a small portion as a deposit, just to make sure that person is serious. Most photographers will require a deposit to reserve someone's day, so that they know the person is serious about this and that they will not cancel. So when you meet with the photographer, do they actually seem interested? Are they asking you questions? And what are the questions that they're asking you? Does it actually pertain to the photography, or is it just about the money? Because a real photographer, especially for wedding clients, will always be asking a lot of questions because they want to get to know their client, and this is obviously one of the biggest days of their lives. So for me, when I meet with a wedding client, I'm usually asking them stuff like, well, how did you guys meet? Tell me about yourself. What kind of things do you like? What kind of photography do you like? What are some must-have shots? Just showing some basic interests. Now, a very important question. Does the photographer have a contract? Now, if the answer to this question is no, I would literally get up off the table and walk outside. If you're getting married, I would just cancel your wedding instead of booking with that photographer with no contract, because a contract is key to any smooth sailing transaction. No contract, no way. I mean, I sound like a really corny PSA over here. Just don't even bother, seriously, because there's so many problems that could arise from not having a contract. A contract protects both parties. God forbid, let's say something happens, they don't give you pictures or anything. How are you going to take them to court? You will have literally no proof, no nothing, no receipts, nothing at all. So you always want to ensure that this is the most professional way possible. It's eliminating any possible problems, and a contract will do just that. Someone who is really serious and professional will have a contract, or at least something that's stating what you will receive. And I'm not saying sit there, interrogate the person, and conduct a survey and get a private detective before you book a photographer. I'm just saying just to take a little bit of precautions. And if someone's professional, you're not going to have any of these problems. But if someone just looks a little sketchy and is just going to like run off with your money, then it's probably something that they would do. Just not even have a contract, not give you a receipt. Some basic things contracts should have. Especially if you're doing weddings, by the way, it should have today's date, the date that you're signing with them, the date of your session, the time that they will start, the time that they will end, Other things like how much an extra hour will be, exactly how many pictures you're gonna get, digital and prints, and if you're not getting any digital, make sure it's written on there. If you want a refund, what are the requirements for that? You want some kind of information. If something were to go wrong, then you can easily just look at the contract and see that person's guidelines, what they do and what they don't do. If you are a mother or a father, you're booking for your senior, your daughter, or your son, contracts cannot be signed by minors. Teens who are 17 or younger cannot sign a contract, and it will not hold up in court. So if you are meeting a photographer for, let's say, senior pictures, what I would do is actually go with your son or daughter there, and you can ask questions that maybe they won't even think of because they're just so excited to get their picture taken. And I would definitely go, I would have the parent, if you are the parent, go check out the contract, read the contract, and always request a copy of the contract. Down the line, let's say something happens, you can always go back and reference it, like, oh, I can get a refund if this happens, or you're gonna get only this amount of pictures, just stuff like that, just so you guys are both on the same wavelength. Just make sure if you're someone underage, you just bring a parent. One other thing, I would also pay with a check. That way you have a record. You know, if God forbid anything happens, you go to court, you have a record of the check that you sent. And then I would ask for a receipt if you are paying with cash and not a check. So at least you have something. Or sometimes, at least with me, I'll have it written in the contract how much you're paying, how much is left, and then the total amount, which I would also recommend that the photographer would have. Exactly how much you paid and then the total, which is extremely important because you want to have at least some kind of number to say, hey, this is how much I paid you. So the photographer should go over the contract with you. I mean, they shouldn't just give you the contract, make you sign it, and just be on their merry little way up to the North Pole and chill with Santa Claus. They should have to explain every single paragraph to you, and then you should actually go over and read whatever you're signing another time, just to double check and make sure. And also a very strong word of caution for models who are working with freelance photographers, just getting their portfolio shots taken. If you're just unsure, or you just feel in your gut, maybe just a tiny, like 1%, actually not even 1%, like a 0.000% of, like, you're not sure about this person or photographer, I would just bring someone with you for the photo shoot, or anyone, just like a Hulk guy, looking guy, a freaking bodyguard. Do not go alone to photo shoots. Okay, and I really say this seriously because I work with a lot of models and they tell me a lot of stories, and I'm just telling you, especially if you are a parent and you have a daughter, son who is modeling, make sure that you either go with them or someone goes with them, because you don't know what's going to happen. I'm not saying that all photographers are creeps and they're going to do stuff and everything's dangerous. I'm just saying, just take that extra step of caution. Especially if your son, daughter, or the model, if you are the model and you're underage, you don't want to be in the position where anything does happen and someone's not there with you. I mean, I'm not going to profile photographers. I'm not going to say what specific type of photographer that you should be looking out for. I just think that if you are unsure about the photographer, or you don't know them personally, if this is the first time working with them, you're underage, or even if you're not underage, even if you're a little bit older, just take someone with you. Take a boyfriend, take your brother, take your sister. Really, just please don't go alone. So these are all my recommendations on how to avoid being scammed by a photographer. Hopefully they were helpful, and just ask for recommendations. Always see examples of work, and do not book someone without a contract. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great and non-scammy day. That's not even a word.